Hello everybody. Here we have Nick's made in Mexico. Is it made in Mexico? That's what he says. It looks older than that. No, it's made in the USA. Why have I got it down as, he's got it down as listed as a made in Mexico. Well, no, hold on, this is an old made in the USA Strat. I see. So we together have been talking about this as made in Mexico. But it isn't. So there you have it. It's made in the US of A. Look at that. Ancient condition. So it's not made in Mexico. I haven't looked that closely. I mean, I've briefly played it and examined the frets, but that's just a sort of a close-up fret look. I suppose if I was to, well, okay, that's not really the be-all and end-all of things. So it's a USA Strat. I've been uncomfortable calling it Mexico because it's got this three thing micro tilt, and I don't remember that being a made in Mexico thing. But so this guitar came with, first of all, a Roland synth unit on there, which I've taken off on request and cleaned up. So it's pick up there, and there was a unit stuck to there, and as well there was a whole load of masking tape on the back, which I've removed, revealing some quite remarkable shapes and things. So as you can probably see, anybody would think that we were looking at deliberate scratches, but looking at these little funny corrosions or something, they follow the line of the masking tape, and it goes all the way up to the end there, and there's a sort of slight line across there. You might just be able to see it showing up in the reflection, and then it goes, there's a kind of a load of finish falling away there or cracking there, and then those little kind of corrosion lines come back down here following the masking tape, and then they track all the way along there, and they don't look much from here, but they're all those little tiny dents, and somebody hasn't done those by hand. I can tell you that's some sort of corrosion that's happened as a result of something in the masking tape. There's a hole, a ding. There's something in the masking tape the gaffa tape, ancient gaffa tape, has created these. But these are totally hard to fathom because it's like some sort of worm trail. Come on. And that doesn't make a lot of sense either which way. I'm trying to get it in focus. There we go. And it's like shots of something on the moon. There's a cut or scratch, a diagonal scratch, but it's not even dead straight. And there's another one up there as well. But the tape was along that line, and it was along this line here too, like so. So anyway, I don't think we'll ever know whether that was done by some teenager in a cry for help. But anyway, we've got this old Fender USA. I'm going to stop calling it made in Mexico right now. Now I've had a good close look at it. So the request in here is, I had a look at these frets and they're pretty worn out. So we agreed that it should get a refret. With these old classic guitars like this, I'm not pushing a refret on anybody. Those of you who know me know that if it moves, I'll refret it. But because I love it, it's a nice thing to do. But in a case like this, I recognize that originally Nick was thinking about selling this, and so perhaps it's more, I won't say more valuable, but it may make more sense to sell it without refretting. But when I reported on the basic lowness of the frets, then the kind of brief was to refret it. Also, the pots and volume, the jacks broken, and the pots aren't working hard. Well, one of them isn't working, and they're faded. So I've got some replacements. Anyway, I've got some interesting bits on here. I don't know. Let's turn this round. On the bridge, the bridge bears the words "Final Prospect." I don't know if this is a brand thing or a band thing. Prospect. But there's no T. Prospect. So, Final Prospect. Is that a dot after the C? No, maybe. Yeah. But what does it mean? You see there's been some, maybe some oil in there, or just playing guns. But so they look like old Fender originals, and look where they look at the strings gone, kind of off to one side. So nice and original and old, but, well, I won't say original if it's a Fender. I don't know what this represents. If any of you recognize this, tell me. It's interesting. I'll probably go and clean this all up, change it, refret it, radius the board, and then somebody will say, oh no, that proves that it was the guitar played by Jimi Hendrix at somewhere or t'other. But there we have it. So I suppose one of the things that a person technically ought to do, I don't suppose this is going to be quick or easy, so if it doesn't appear to be quick or easy, I will clear off. Let's try Fender USA serial number, no, aerial mount, no, that won't do. Serial numbers, but I want to look up really. There we go, Fender guitars look up. Let's have a look at this. 76, 68. 76, 68, 034. I'm definitely not a robot. Search. This is probably making the headphone thing go wrong. But that's funny if it is that it? You've done your thing. No results. Okay. Well, nothing I can do about that then, is there? 76,68034. 76,68034. No letters in it, for starters. I wonder if there's a different one. Serial number guide. Serial number lookup. True vintage guitars. For vintage guitars, fine. S prefix, no prefix. 6 digit with a large F underneath on the neck plate, no. L serial numbers, no. Different from later numbers, no. So that isn't happening. So there's an L, these are all L numbers. Yikes. A large F underneath. Well, not really. 60s. What's this? 76. I don't think this is right. It was the headstock in 76. Okay. Serial number scheme began with a letter. Prefix indicate the decade. Nope. Right, 76 equals 1976 is bold print. So this is a 76. Okay. And it's the CBS style headstock. Okay. So 76. Well, that's about it. That's all we know. 76. Bold print for this range. 76, 76. That's all I can tell you. 76. So older than I thought. I thought it was an 80s, but it's a 76. Right. So there we go. 76. And what it won't have is sideways installed frets, but it's a 76 Strat. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to refret it as requested. What does that mean? Well, it means we're going to take off everything that's going to not be handy for now, and we're going to just deal with the neck. So we shall just get straight into it. So sometimes people say, didn't you check with them, and didn't you advise the customer not to ... not to refret it, not to change the nut from original, not to change the pots? And the answer is yes. I talked to the customer about what's here and what the changes will be, and I check with the customer that the customer wants it. Just like the refinish I just completed yesterday, actually, on the rear of Steve's Gibson ES333. A lovely old guitar, well, not so old, but lovely ES333, and he wanted the back refinishing because there were a couple of really horrible mistakes actually in the finish. Don't quite know how they got out of the factory, but they did. And they'd been bugging him ever since, and then there was also a physical ding where it had been dropped, and it had kind of pretty badly dented the guitar on the back, the finish on the back. So the bottom line is he wanted that refinished, and it's a keeper guitar for him. And I said to him, the implications of it are this: it won't be exactly the same. I probably can't copy exactly the Gibson opacity, because I don't have their pasty stuff that they used apparently, and I'm fully armed with all of those bits of information, and plus the fact that if somebody else, that would be doing away with its originality, and plus the fact I knew that I would get comments to that effect. So as soon as you're on social media and you do this sort of work, then you say, I'm going to do this, or customers ask me to do this to their guitar, you immediately get people who do varying different degrees of telling you their mind. Some that just tell you you're a complete idiot, you shouldn't be allowed near it, how dare you tell somebody, and they treat the Gibson brand as if it's sacrosanct, and no customer should ever have the right to decide what they want with it if it isn't what this person commenting thinks of it should be done with it. So you get that kind of arrogance. So I got a few of those people expressing serious reservations. Anyway, and all I can really say to people is, look, we've checked this out. This is what the customer wants, and when it comes down to it, if the customer knows the implications of their choices, and then they still want it done, then I'm going to do it for them, regardless of what somebody else out there thinks. Because guess what? I'm running a business to pay my rent every month. I don't have the luxury of arsing around and doing something as a sort of hobby. This is what keeps me and my missus housed and the electricity bill paid. And I'm not going to, my business is not best served. Damn, I've crimped this one round, I didn't want to do that. Business is definitely not best served by telling a customer I know better than them. Well, I was trying to hang on to these strings to reuse them for the fret leveling part of things, but that one's so old it's just broken, so I think I'm just going to give up on that attempt. So we're a B string down. Oh well. Worst comes to the worst, I'll sacrifice a set. Now I'm going to take off the back plate here, and the screws on this back plate are they're sort of already been refilled. They're little brass screws, so they're definitely non-standard, and the holes are worn out, so I'm going to need to refill those if we're going to use these brass ones again. If we're going to use any one again, frankly, because none of them are going to hold. Nothing's going to hold. So we'll get the ones out that will come out. Yeah, so I try to be respectful when I reply back to those people who think it's the wrong thing to do. I think I do pretty well in not being abusive, but there are times where it can you know, it can just get just a little bit grinding, but I think I do fairly well in being polite about it. Anyhow, oh yeah, this is funny. That shop's still going, by the way. I've forgotten where it is, but I looked it up. Yeah. Anyway, so this is, you know, this is the same sort of thing. It's an old, classic old Fender, and it's got its marks and its war wounds and whatever, and we're going to live with those. Not going to tidy those up, but we are going to give it a new lease of life with some new frets. Because I think, you know, if it's, when it comes down to the thing about selling it, if this guitar needs to be refretted to be played for another 30, 40 years, then, well, you might as well do it. Something's going to be done at some point, whether it's sooner or later. Okay, so let us remove the springs. We've got 5 springs here. The reason I'm removing these is because I want to, while I'm doing everything else, I'm going to want to clean the bridge components so that hopefully they won't turn out to be seized or anything. And you think, well, hang on, you're refretting the neck. Well, I'm also setting it up, and in doing so, I need these saddles to work. If they don't work, i.e. backwards and forwards or raising and lowering, then I'm basically not going to, we're not going to get a good setup out of it. Now, these screws are very, very loose, so these holes may well need filling as well. It may still just about hold. But I think, yeah, checking out that all of these not only work as far as intonation goes, but also up and down in terms of height setting is important for me. And also, don't forget, I've got to also got to get under the covers anyway, so I might as well take the electrics off so I can be doing the electrics as well. So let's first of all get the neck off, see if the micro tilt's being used. There was a, when I looked at this, one of the first observations about this guitar is that to get a low action, it definitely needed new frets, but it also needed a shim putting in. So shim in inverted commas because it has a micro tilt system. Chances are you'd really want to use that if it needed shim. There's the bolt at the back. Let's have a look at how so that's already been shimmed up to the skies. Has it been shimmed a lot? Yeah, it's sticking up a fair bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just have a quick, if I can get in there now, a quick look and see. It's very furry. I'm going to have a look and see how much room there is left for shimming. So there's the pushing mechanism there. There's the corresponding plate. You see the pinpoint where it's been pushing. Yeah. Well, I can tell you it's got to raise up a bit more, so there's no two ways about it. It's got to either work or we kind of ignore it and shim it in an old-fashioned way, but it's not really set up for that. Now the question is, which and what of these here devices is the thing? It's a USA, so my concern is, or worry is, that it's going to start out being a US style. Blimey. It's absolutely filthy. It's covered in sanding paste. So I don't really know if I can get in there very easily. Well, I certainly can't see what the head fixture is in there. So that's going to be something of a challenge. can't see what's down in there. I don't want to try undoing it from this end because that will, I don't want to grab the threads. I may have to go through a series of hex keys, which none of these will be quite right, I'm sure. But I'm just trying to get a feel if any of them actually fit in. I think that does fit in, which tells me then it probably is the one I've got at home and not here. Damn, I didn't bring it here. Oh, maybe I did. Maybe I did. I'll try to keep the imperial ones out in a separate place. Aha. Ooh. Aha, I think it is. Very good. Yep, that's down flat. Nice. The question I was looking for is how much is there in there? Will it do the job that I need without falling out? Yeah, I think it will. So I'm just going to dial it in a bit flat to begin with. So we'll worry about positioning this neck later on. So this is an interesting situation because of the, I'll put that hex key in there for a minute so I know where it is. Yeah, you know, there's a lot of people talk about or have a view about the ups and downs, pros and cons of the micro tilt, and some people, let's put these in a bag too. You know, some people I hear being very critical of them, and I think I don't often get to the bottom of what their objections are. They seem to be of the sort of kind that I don't like the fact that this is pushing up and creating an air gap. Therefore, it, you know, the neck isn't joined directly to the wood-to-wood contact. You know, people have this idea that this wood-to-wood contact is vital, and I think that's a mistake. But you know, to each their own belief systems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the jack now and the scratch plate and put them aside, and then deal with them all separately as I rewire, fit new pots and stuff and rewire. So I'm leaving, at this point in time, unless there's a reason to, I'm leaving the switch as the original one because it seems to change settings well enough. And generally speaking, I'm not going to clean up any of this stuff. I don't want to turn this into a sanitized restore type project. There are some dents on the, dings and dents on the neck, which technically could be cleaned up, probably with some. This one doesn't want to go. Old fire. This could be a problem standing in the way of progress. Yeah. What was I saying? Yeah, dents in the neck that technically could be sorted out, but again, it would be a bit of cosmetic over-fixing probably. This is supposed to be. This has never really worked very well, this device. I'm going to have to use a lot of downward force to get this sucker out. So I think this is a no use one. Just keep this out of the mix. There's no point putting, even if the next one on will look a bit cleaner, I don't want to put a messed up, rusted up head. It's actually filled up with a bit of rust. So I don't want that reintroduced into the thing. Come on. Thank you. Sometimes with screws, although they look wonderful and old, sometimes I replace with new because in a sense a screw has a job to do, and it's not really about preserving above all else its originality. I do have some screws that are duller than others in there, just from being old usage. That's a nice old-fashioned colour scheme. Again, you know, yes, that's original, but the idea here is I want this thing to work more than I want it to strictly be its original state. So there we have it. Look at that grime, loads of grime. Nice original stuff, furry as anybody's business. So obviously we'll keep all of that, take it out and replace it. But you know, this is to be played, not to be not to be just worshipped as a vintage thing. Now, for example, the strap button here. Let's just check that it will tighten up. Yes, it will. That's okay. And that one's tight. Fine. All right. So I will clean that up a bit because it's just general old-fashioned filth under there. And you can see it's been corroding for some time. So we'll just put that out of the way to one side, and we'll concentrate back on the neck. So I'm going to take the tuners off and these things. Get a couple more bags. These little bags tend to be really handy just to make sure you don't lose any of these little tiny fiddly bits. So we've got two vintage string trees here, which I propose to replace with tusk, and I've got black tusk string trees to go with this. But we'll keep all of this original stuff, obviously, and we'll just remove these. Blowing up outside, got a nice stormy thing going on, but it's incredibly warm. It's gone from being -1 and -2 to being about 10 to 12 blowing in from the west. So it's one of those warm winds coming up from the Caribbean type of, I know it's a long way away, so it's not, it might have originated in the Caribbean, but by the time it gets here it's just wet and blustery. But it is 10 degrees warmer than it was a couple of days ago, so it's very different from when we get an easterly wind from the European mainland off into the Eastern Europe territories, the Ukraines and Russias. So these are my tuner screws. The thing about putting them in a little bag like this, just keeps them together so you know where they are. So for the sake of something or other, I'm just going to hold all of these, excuse me, frog in my throat, hold all these in the line, like so. And just lay them down in the box safely. We don't have to take these things out. I'll try to, because they just get slightly in the way whilst doing, what am I talking about? Whilst holding down the headstock to do the fret leveling, and it depends how tightly in they are, but that should be all right. Jolly good. Right. So now I'm going to take out the nut, because this is, wow, that's an, I'll give you a close-up look now. Strings are off and everything, but if you look at that nut, that is quite something. I mean, what's happened is the slots have been cut to about the right height, but they've done it in the good old-fashioned V-file way. And actually, you know, you can use a V-file like this to effectively set your correct first fret action. But once you've done that, once you've got the strings down at the right height, then the best thing to do after that is to take all of this excess material off. And quite frankly, most of that bulk there would come off, and it would look really smart. Now we're looking at some incredible play wear on these ancient frets here. So the first thing to do is I'm going to just carefully cut the finish, if I can do it, at the point where the nut's been bedded in. Now, one thing I don't know about this guitar just a second is what the finish is made of. So I will do a little bit of research, but if you watched my recent video about Larry's made in Japan Ash Strat refret, the one before this, then that was a poly finished neck, which once I'd refretted it, I then went through and re-finished the edges of the neck to tidy it up, which is quite nice to do and relatively easy to do with poly. But it's easy to do with anything, but it's a good thing to do once you've refretted. So what I want to do now is I just want to support that, and I want to see if I can persuade this nut to come out. There we go. Come out, a bit of grime under there, but that's a Korean type of nut, curved bottom. Very cool. We need to clean that slot up a bit, but it's a curved bottom. So we've got one of those. Now, what I didn't measure about this the first time round, I was led to believe. Was I led to believe, or did I just assume? I may have just assumed what the radius was. God blimey. I assumed it was 9. Well, it's hard to tell. This is what happens now. It can happen when you've got a very worn fretboard. I think it's flatter than 7.25, but it's more rounded at the edges than a 9.5. So we have got a vintagey thing going on here, or we've got an age altered thing, which is very strange. So it's definitely flatter than 9.5. There's a distinct gap under there. The 9.5 looks good across the center, but then it rolls away. So I checked with Nick if he was worried about keeping this ancient patina, as we might call it, the old grime, and he wasn't attached to it. So with that in mind, we could absolutely gently re-radius this to the 7.5. It ought to be, because this is not a 9.5, naturally a 9.5. It's neither, actually, but it's 9.5 down the center and a bit of a roll off either side, but down there it's a bit flatter than 7.5, but it's correct on the edges. So we have to be one or the other, really. Do we have to be Nah, the frets will go to whatever the fingerboard says. That's the first rule. But I think the difference, so that's a bit flatter than 7.25. So it's got to be one or the other. The question is trying to assess which one it's closest to. What's horrible if you treat it as 9.5, but then you have these fall off edges, then you run the risk of having frets that float above the edge, float at the edges, which we don't want. If we go to 9.5, it's going to flatten the center just a little bit to meet the, or to bring it down. It's got to come down to take up the over curved edges. If we do it this way around, at 7.25, we're taking a bit off there. It feels like it's better at 7.5. So I think I probably need to ask Nick to settle on this, because it can be one or the other. I think we'll take the frets off, do that part without any issues. But let's hold off the decision on the hold off the decision on the other bit. So what I'm just going to look for at the moment is I'm going to get a quick sense of the neck. That's actually almost, there's a couple of high frets not seated properly at the ends, but it's not twisted or anything like so. It's got a bit of relief in the middle. I'm not sure if it is relief, but it's got something in the middle. So let's try and put a little bit of a tightener on it. See if we can just make it flat. There. In truth, what we really want, let's try it a bit further. What we really want is some back bow in here, if we can get it in. There's a little bit, it's not amazing. We'll come back to flattening it again in a minute. But the back bow is a good start point for the fret pulling. So get me a clamp. So this is going to put it a slightly odd order of events, because I was sort of lined up to get the frets put in tonight. But I think we'll hold and make a decision on that separately. So let me get some some water. You what? Water, yes. Having a little bit of water on the board to help us on our way. So the idea of putting some back bow into the neck is to help release the grip of the wood on the, where's these wires gone? Release the grip of the wood a little bit on the fret tangs. So it should make pulling them a little bit easier. So I get my Hosco already damaged at one end, can you believe it? Probably working on stainless steel. So the idea is, let's get you a view. For those who might have watched the video of Larry's one where I had to steal some fretwire from this one, I actually found a whole set of fretwire of this gauge anyway, so that sort of did away with the concern of not having enough. So the idea is now I want to lift these frets right at the end. So I'm just going to go to each one and very gently persuade it to come up at the end. This one doesn't want to do it. Thank you. Not good. If you don't get that bite, first of all, it can turn into a bit of a wrestling match. It's very critical just getting that start. There you go. And that little click you're hearing is pretty much a confirmation that I've got that start point right. Once that's up, the frets should then come away after that. But I'm doing the start points on all of them while I'm in the start mood, and that one may work, yes, thankfully. And that one. And then I'll come back and do all of them. So the bit of water helps to soften the rosewood. The back bow in the neck helps to theoretically release the grip of the wood on the fret tang, and then the heat helps to kind of, it'll steam the wood a little bit if there's water in it, and if there's old-fashioned glues that might soften from being heated, it helps that to happen too. But very often the frets will be tapped in without glue from the factory, at the factory. I'm not sure who uses glue by default. Some do and some don't. I tend to when I'm refretting, because they started out, you know, as you come to do the refret, the slots sometimes are a bit loose, and so a little bit of glue helps along the way. Right, so now we're going to add some more heat, and now I've got the first bit lifting. I'm going to nibble my way along, lifting it out of the tang and with a bit of heat, and then the whole thing comes out nicely. So these frets come all the way to the edge, so the tang is visible, so there's no end fills or cover-ups, and they're actually appearing to come out very cooperatively. So I think what I'll do tonight, while I'm looking for an answer to this question, is I think I'll do the swapping the electrics around. Might as well. I'm going to use my time effectively. So I don't know where the zone of camera is at the moment, but oh well, something like that. You can see it all. It's always this hand's in the way anyway, obscuring what's going on. Sometimes when you have very dry fingerboards, this process of lifting the frets out can tear out little flakes, depending on the grain, sometimes depending on the dryness. Other times this seems to have a lot of, looks and feels like it's got a lot of old oil from play and who knows, from the original wood in it, so it doesn't look like it's pulling flakes of rosewood up with it. So it all looks good. So yeah, so I think that's what I'll do. I'll clean the body, and then we'll change the electrics over and reinstall those in the body tonight, and then we'll wait for an answer on the radius. Now, if somebody says, look, I whatever it feels like right now, it has to feel exactly the same way. Well, the first thing is it won't, because the frets will be new and taller, so that's going to feel different. If they do want in other words, if somebody said, look, I do not want the fingerboard touching at all, I want it exactly the same, then we would try and just lay these frets on top of the existing, which I could do. Instead of re-radiusing, I could just do that. And what I would do is a slightly different approach. I would probably not use the press. I'd probably use a little wooden block, and I would probably bend. For 7.25 for the edges, and then tap it down, and it would mold itself to whatever the fretboard says is right. But I think the important bit about the determining what you're bending at, it gives you your start point, so that a fret bent at 7.25 inches will by definition sort of hold on to a slot that is 9.5 because it's trying to be tighter than that slot. So it wants to sort of grip a little bit. That's the idea anyway. It seems to be the case. So, right, let me get a piece of tissue. So look, some little bits of wood grime would come out at that point, but you can see it's mostly good old-fashioned grime. And then we have the tangs here, which are actually pretty grimy, but I don't think it's anything. I don't think there's glue. I think it's just finger grime over the many years. So let's just get a sense of what the width of the tang is. It's 0.5 at the thinnest part. That's okay, that's what the replacement is. Interestingly, the one I did for Larry, the original fret tangs on the same size fret wire, the original is Japanese build, so the original tangs were 65.65, something like that. And so the new ones, even though the fret wire was the same gauge, the new tangs were loose, and they actually had to be, I had to do a little bit of twisting to get them to bite. Okay, so there's our fretted neck. So here's the kind of thing. First of all, let's put it back to, we want to put it back to flat. So we had it dialed up for some back bow, and to go back to flat, we probably want to just go back to there, and then we'll look at it as a fingerboard up against the light. It probably probably needs a tiny bit of tightening actually, but obviously we're going to want to fret it while it's flat, which is there. Okay, so that's good. That's less to worry about. So if I was going to fret to this, knowing, let's do a quick graphic. So what we've got is an interesting scenario. We've got a fingerboard. We'll do the fingerboard twice. So we've got a fingerboard that has, actually I think I'm going to stick with that. So the fingerboard has, if it was like this, where the red dotted line goes, badly drawn, sorry. So if it went like that, where the red line goes, that would be the 7.25. But what we've really got is we've got this bit here is 9.5, and this bit here is 7.25, or closer to. So what it really means is we've got a 9.5 with rounded off sides. The problem is, as you can imagine, if we create a 9.5 wire, the 9.5 wire will sit high there, match perfectly there, and sit high there, slightly on the edges. Make sense? So I don't want the risk of that. So the alternative, if we fitted a 7.25 wire and pressed it down, what we might get, 7.25 wire, might look something like this. In line there, a bit higher there, in line there. Get my drift? But if we started with a 7.25 wire and tapped it down, we might find this area here flattens out a little bit, and this area stays how it was if we tap it. So 7.25 over 9.5, or over whatever it is, sorry, because this isn't technically, this is a hybrid, isn't it? Some sort of hybrid. It's not one or the other. So 7.25 over that hybrid is probably the best bet. Now, I guess the way to know that, and that's to do it without re-radiusing all of this. And actually, you know, looking at the, I have to say, I'm changing my mind. Why is this so dark today? That's better. Sorry. Looking at this, I'm liking the feel of this. You know, I'm not. There's so much old stuff in there, goo. What I'm probably more likely to do is get my clever little sanding what's it, and I would definitely, first and foremost, clear up this grime either side of the what do you call it? Oh boy, the tang, or the file, the fret slot. So this little file is good for that. So the interesting thing about this is, like I said, if we pressed a 7.25 over this with a 7.25 brass cool, it would sit on at 7.25 and just leave a little gap under the middle, because the middle we know is flatter. If we tap it on, not using the brass 7.25 core, but we tapped it on, and we tapped the 7.25 bent wire over the hybrid 9.5 and 7.25 weirdy actual fingerboard, then we'd get a sort of we'd end up with the hybrid, which is exactly what it currently is, and I think possibly that's what the original frets were. Now I'm probably going a bit over the top here in terms of the size or the difference in the radius, but the thing we don't want to do is we don't want a huge gap in the middle, because that, even though it's quite effective, as in, you know, you'll play this radius very well. There's nothing wrong with it. It's completely playable. But people get quite freaked out when they see a gap in the middle and they think you've done a terrible job. But actually, it could be a situation where you're just settling for 7.25 over the 9.5 bit in the middle. So some people find, you know, just don't like that at all. But then if you sort of tap it all the way, you can sort of let the underlying fingerboard be the judge of how it works, because it sort of just sets, it says, right, you're just going to stick these frets to my underlying shape, whether you like it or not. So, you know, it's quite a nice idea to have really nice fresh fret on a dark old fingerboard like this. It is a nice touch. Wow, can you hear that wind? It's like the end of the world. But as you can see, I'm kind of working my way along, trying. It's a little bit damp and a little bit greasy actually. So what's happening is it's clogging up my sandpaper attempts to clean it. And what I'm trying to do is just clean this little area either side, only clean the area either side of the slot. This homemade file seems to be the best device I've come across to do it. I've got two of them. So anyway, so I'm just going to keep doing that. I'm going to clean the inside of the nut slot as well, which is going to be critical to fitting a new nut and having it fit correctly. So I may, depends, I may have time to do the wiring. This cleaning up business may take longer than I thought. So I guess what I'm doing now is I'm kind of thinking, I'm holding off in my mind. If you think of the challenges and my response to them, I'm sort of holding off in my mind about whether to redo this to one or the other. I'm kind of thinking, look, in a truth about it will be that its part of its character will be the very fact that it is a combination of these two radii. Whether anyone actually would feel the difference between the two is anybody's guess, and I'm not sure they would. But the point is, we certainly can say that we know that it is going to be a combination of those two things. It will have an effect. This feels very greasy up here. So, yeah, it's just kind of not entirely sure whether that will be what I want to do. So this is the good thing about radiusing, of course, is it takes all of this surface layer off, and everything suddenly, you get rid of all this greasy stuff that I'm struggling with here in my sandpaper. Part of the thing here is that the slots do this naturally scallops itself over time, whether you want it to or not. So the frets end up being on sort of little crests in an overall landscape where it's it kind of goes down immediately afterwards, like little hedges. As the ground below wears away, they appear taller and taller. But again, that will be a subtle part of the feel of this thing that is or isn't familiar, depending on how much Nick has played it recently, or whether it's been kept in the attic for a period of time. So, as far as this is a slow process, and you either get good at telling jokes to entertain your audience, or you just kind of blether away at nothing in particular. It may just be that tomorrow it'll be easier to do this because it's dried out a bit, but anyway. Sometimes you can sort of follow up by running sandpaper this way and not stripping it of all its darkness and its oil, but just helping to take some of this surface layer off. Well, I'm going to keep on doing it because it's real time and I tend to do things in real time. I think the sandpaper is now running out of efficacy. The sound of that wind. It's a bit scarier driving back through the lanes. I'm thinking, I hope the tree isn't going to come down, or I hope that wall isn't leaning more than it usually is. But the wild windy outdoors is a fantastic place. So what does the coming week have in store? Well, I've got to refret this, no longer made in Mexico. I don't know why I ever thought it was. I'm going to go back because if I'm convinced Nick said it was made in Mexico. Go back through the emails later on, but anyway, this USA, it was a test. This USA Strat, I've got to finish that. I've got the, then after that, I've got Justin's USA Strat. That's an Olympic white one, a much newer one. And again, that's for a refret as well. So a lot of Fender Strat refretting. Kind of interesting to compare the different challenges of each one. So the first one was a maple board with a poly finished board with, which in the end had a bit of flaking, so it needed the repair, the edge repairs that I gave it. This one, a kind of an oily old. This is kind of corroded away here with the oil. It's in a sort of knotted area as well. Yeah, so this is an oily old rosewood board, and then the Olympic white one will be another maple board. And the Olympic white one is a maple board, but it has a ton of finish up and over the frets, whereas the Japanese one didn't. It was I think it was still an overspray job, but it was much more carefully done, so it didn't have that horrible build-up of finish over the frets, which then gets sanded off or scraped off when they polish the guitar before sending it out. So the USA Olympic white one could well be harder to get the frets looking clean, and it also may be quite susceptible to the finish flaking because of the amount of it going up the sides of the frets either side, which is why I don't like that method. Now, I had thought that the Japanese one wasn't made or hadn't been finished in the same way, but by the time I got to the end of it, I started to think actually it was done that way. But just that the Japanese had done it a lot more tidily, but it still showed evidence of the down pitfalls of having done it that way, which is the propensity to flake, because when you remove the frets on a guitar that's been finished that way, you are sort of breaking up the carpet of finish and it's no longer firmly attached. It's not a good way of doing it. Somebody asked this morning did I think that maybe they put the frets down on the wood first for a better sonic metal to wood connection, which is why might that be why they didn't do the finishing first, to avoid putting the frets on top of finish. And I don't really think that is going to be I'm sure somebody probably came up with that somewhere as an excuse, but I think it's probably more to do with money, time and money than anything else. So I'm going to give this a little rub down with the old naphtha. Let's see how much more grime wants to come out. And sort of all the while I'm doing this, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it, man. I'm kind of getting a look at it, and I'm thinking, ooh, gooey. I'm thinking, how much better would this look? Is it worth trying to retain the original quality of the worn and oiled up board? And part of me thinks that it is. We shall see. But that was a grimy fingerboard. So to the touch, I can still feel all these ridges. There isn't any way to get rid of them other than perhaps sanding them down with, we have something like a 400 grit, which you can lightly take to this and help to take off some of the ridges. So it's a little bit of a half-half. It's not fierce enough to radius it in any sort of way, but it can just help to skim off the peaks, and it's still got most of the original oil will still be in the wood. So, you know, clean it out like so, and then it's as smooth as it can be. What we'd also want to do with this, if I just get the saw, we just want to gently run the saw through each of these slots just to make sure it's clean. They're very shallow slots as well, which is quite good because there won't be loads of gaps underneath them. But we also have to keep an eye out that they are deep enough for the frets to seat properly. The thing with when it comes to the tang and fret seating, you're better off having some gap underneath than none at all. If you have no gap, or if they aren't deep enough, the fret will resist going in and it will sit up on one end, and no matter what you do it will not sit level. So the fret slots have to be adequate for the job at hand. I've got a little one way I check for the depth. One second, I'll show you. So there's my fingerboard. Checking the depth of the slots, I tend to use a blade like so and a piece of metal like so, and I'll put the blade in like that and lower this until it's flush with the top and pull it out, and I can see the difference, the height of the tang, or the height of the depth of the slot I should say. So sometimes I use two of these, it can be easier that way. So pick a spot, put it in there, line that up on the spot that it's next to, and you can see that bit sticking out there. That will tell you the depth. And if you look at your fret wire, which I've got here, you can see, I can see, that should cover it fine. But you know, if not, if it's close, then at least you're starting your refret with an awareness that this could be a problem, and you may just sort of keep an eye on it. And so if something goes wrong, it's about 2.5 mils deep. So if you find that the frets, as soon as you start, the frets aren't sitting properly, then immediately you can go, you think, well, actually that was only 2.5 mils, so we could be on a sort of just on the edge of these things not seating properly, in which case they're going to stand proud and we're going to struggle to get them to be level with each other. So that's a sort of start point for this neck, and I can now look at it and say to myself, am I going to work it like that, or am I going to revert it to brand new? It's a what do you call it, a veneer board, so it's very thin, and that's part of why may be better not to be changing the radius. And the more I think about it, what do they call it? Is it called a veneer? It's not a slab board thing. It's a piece that's bent round the top, so it is a vintage style thing. So my feeling is, I think we shouldn't be doing that. I think, in fact, the thing is we're going to do is we're going to go with it, and we're going to go with Let's have one last rethink. 7.25 for the ends, but even the ends are bent more than 7.25. Can you believe it? 9.5 is going to be flying. 7.25 is going to have a tiny lift in the middle, but that's going to be less visible. We're going to bend for 7.25, right? Now, I'm going to do this bending right now, since I'm in fact moving on. I'm changing my schedule again. In other words, I'm not going to do the electrics tonight, I'm going to do the fretting, which means a bit of a tidy up in a minute. But let me just get the wire ready. So, let's say I've got two. I had a spare wire of this gauge, which was good. They're all different radii at the moment. So let us keep that to one side. Let's start with this one here. This is I've forgotten what the gauge is, but it's 2.75 wide and 1.3 tall, I think. So it's a medium. It's not a jumbo, but it's not a totally skinny one either. It's sort of in the middle. 50085. This is a Jescar one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of these bits of paper first. Holy cow, come on, because I need them off before I can do the bending. Oh, and there's more. So a mistake I made on the last refret, believe it or not, schoolboy mistake, is that I kind of checked and judged the radius up there, standing up by the bender thing, and as a result, I didn't get the radius right, and in this it's even more critical that it's right. So we have to have 7.25 or even fractionally tighter. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look at. Am I going to do it? I might have a look at pressing for 7.25. So we've got this piece of wire here. It's too long. That one's on the floor. This one's too long to use in one go. So I'm going to cut it at its halfway point. And this one is out the way. There they go. Keep them separate so I know which is which. Right, so I want to bend this. First of all, I'm going to check this against the one that's here, against the device on the desk. Now we have, it's looking like a 9.5, and it's not tight enough for a 7.25. So now I'm going to put an extra bit of bend on it, which you probably can't see, but if it's the same gauge, it should bend up nicely. I have a feeling that's over, it's gone over a little bit, but I will double check it, and if it has, I will come back again. So that's tighter than the 7.25, so it's not going to work with that, so we're going to just adjust that slightly, bend this flat. See if I can show you what's going on over there. Sorry about this. I'm over there by the doorway in the silly place that I've managed to put this. So that's too tight, so I'm going to need to go outwards a bit, which is to the right, wider to the right, I never remember. So that's not tight enough. So I'm going to undo this, I'm going to go to the left, tighten, to the left. That's not there yet, but I'll do it twice just to be sure. Not quite consistent, this one. Now I'm going to check down here on the deck, just at rest. So it's, no, hang on, 7.25. So it's just about 7.25. I'm going to do a tiny bit. I'm going to straighten out again and do it again one more time, and then check it. 7.25. Right then, so all bent into a mess again, and then run it through once, and then twice. twice, place it on the deck, and needs a tiny bit more. So what do we say? Left was loose, right was loose, left was tight. Hardly any movement. Run it through twice at that setting. See, that's still close to 725. I want to fraction over that, so I'm going to go slack, turn, tighten. I'm not sure that's even making it move at all, but we shall see. Oh yes, it is. It's gone all the way around. Okay, that's good. That's just over 725. I'm going to do the same to this one, and we'll go with that. Now the question I've got to answer now is, do I press it with a 725 and leave us with that little gap in the middle, or do I look at this one, it's not going to the same place. This one's just a tiny bit. Don't understand that. Yeah, do I press it or do I tap it? Press it or tap it? That's good. That'll do. There we are. Press it or tap it. Press it or tap it. That's almost there. That's about as close as you can get, actually. That's a teeny weensy bit more. Press or tap? What do you reckon? Press it, tap it. Press it, tap it. Ooh. Press or tap? It's got to be spot on. Right, there will do. There we go. So there's me 2 bits of wire. Press or tap? Press or tap? Well, let's cut the frets first. Let's worry about the press tap bit in a minute. So we're going to put away things we don't rightly need just now. So I've got a bunch of spare wire from the other fretting, which I'm going to put over here a minute so I don't get it in the way. So I'm making sure that I'm using all one type of wire compared to the other one. Those tools need fresh sandpaper putting on them sometime. Whoa, listen to that. Right. You go up there, you go down there, you go down there, and you go there. Right, need some of these, don't need that one, do need that one. Will need, might need that one. So, let's have a think. Tap it in or not. Let's begin by making a first fret. Okay, so I'm going to just lay this on here first of all and cut a number 1 fret. Got it? Got it. So I'm going to lay it on here now. Lay it on here, lay it on here. See what we've got. Oh, not so clever. So here's something. I'm going to get a piece of wood and I'm going to tap this in with a piece of wood. I need to cut a little piece. I had one and I think I've just lost it somewhere. Is that it? No, but it could have been. Is that it? That could have been it. That'll do. Oh, I don't know what this is, mahogany. And I'm just going to place it there for a minute, and I'm going to tap it with no glue, nothing. And I'm going to treat it as if we're tapping. Thank you, book. Tapping it in. Well, that is pretty good. You'll never be able to see very well, but So that's a dry fret, over radiused, tapped in. There, if there's a gap at all, there's a minuscule kind of sense of a gap on a flat spot, but actually that's only, funnily enough, what I saw as a flat spot is only because there is an actual dent there. So I think we should go with this tapping and gluing and let it mold to the radius that's there. Okay, that's my thought. Now, because this is such a tight radius, I'm going to have to sort of hold it off the edge of the thing while I cut the frets, because otherwise I haven't got enough hands to hold the fret while it's cutting. Place it there and do the next one. If I cut the wire to a more manageable length, we'll lose something in the cutting, because we'll end up having two odd shaped bits left over. So although this is fiddly, in my experience it's much better to cut it off the reel than it is. So you can see how my thinking process has gone along from, shall we refinish it to one or other radius, even though that's not what it's currently doing, down to, well, actually it's one of those, I'm just going to run this through again, it's one of those veneer thingies, veneer boarded things, thin strip of veneer as the fingerboard. So if we did it, I'm just going to lose this bit at the end here because I don't like it. I think it's flat. Yeah, so we haven't got much depth to play with. I don't like that end piece there, so I'm going to lose that. Sometimes the ends of these meter pieces, or the coils, have a little flat spot on them, which I always try to keep an eye out for and make sure I cut it off and throw it away, because it's no good to man or beast. I keep getting this caught under here, and it's trying to drag the fret wire coil open, change the radius, you see. It's just difficult. I suppose I could mark them and move along and mark again, but slow and ponderous. See, so that's the only downside of a tight radius. There's nowhere this coil can go while you're doing this cutting, so you have to sort of hold it out of the way and stop it catching on things, which I'm failing to do. I mean, there are those who could probably say, well, you could probably just about hold it there. Probably put the head of the headstock in a clamp and just hold it out over here and do it. Probably a better bet. Okay, so yeah, so having figured that I don't want to be radiusing this, we've got what we've got. It's got a quality and a feel to it that would be a shame to lose unless we had to. And the question is, do we have to in order to change this radius? And actually, tapping a 7 1/4 over a compound, it's not really a compound radius, it's compound along the length from one side of the guitar neck to the other. So a worn old thing, but I think we can get it to work and retain its original quality in many ways. So that's what I'm aiming for. As you can see, I've sanded a bit of it, which has taken off some of the grime, but hasn't substantially changed the quality of it overall. Yeah, come on. So I'm over-cutting all of these so we can trim them off later once they're fretted, pressed in, tapped in. Okay, so if I'm tapping it, I will probably I can do it standing up here, so I don't have to move to the other bench. because that's where I used to press, but it's not necessary. I know people who work from home, I've heard them say in the past how neighbours get absolutely fed up with hearing the fret tapping noise, and I'm so lucky to be able to do it here at this workshop at night time or at any time, make as much noise as I want anytime, night or day. Only trouble isn't, gee whizzant. So this is not quite easy to do because it's already coiled round. Yeah, just be able to do this all day, every day. Let's see if I can hold on to that. Nearly. Let's see if I can do that again. No, this time it's going to hit the floor. Unless I hold it here, like so. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, so there's my first, my set, and I've now obviously got some spare wire, which I'm going to just immediately label up and put to one side. So if I get something wrong and I need a few more frets for this refret, then I can go straight to this. So this is going to just be by name, so it's going to be next USA Strat. Okay, lovely. So with those things out of the way, what I'm going to do now is just I'm going to here's the thing. Right, here's the thing. You see how this first fret has gone in without any glue at all, and it's held perfectly. How about we try and do the rest like that? So how about we assess the first few. This will be quite a quick thing now. How about, this is actually nice, this will do, we don't really need any support other than that. How about we tap these in just like that, and we'll do 3 and assess them. So no glue, evenly spaced, hammer time. 2. That's actually not looking all right. Let's do 3, and then we'll check and make sure there's no movement or wobble possible. Why is this wet? How come that's wet? So there's a little flat spot there, which is, I'm just looking at the shape in relation, or the frets as they lie in relation to each other. That one looks fractionally high. So if I get me the cool. The thing about glue, in the case of, in this sort of situation, glue isn't really going to make any, it isn't going to play any part in getting it to stick down. But so it's not really. It's just a sort of insurance later on. So I'm looking at the relationship of the frets to each other. It's actually pretty good. Shall we risk number 4 and then have a look? Because what we can do, coming back to the beginning, having put no glue in them, we're not in any messy situation if we need to remove these. We've got loads of spare wire if I need to remove these, and the process to remove them bends them out of shape. But actually they're given the relative slight unevenness of the underlying thing, they're sitting pretty well. Let's have a little feel. A little bit there. But generally speaking, my question would be, will they improve any with glue and any with glue and pressing? See if that has any effect on that. Actually, that isn't bad. Those last little taps sort of put that in place nicely. What do you think? What do you think? Do we go on or do we go glue? There's a little tiny lift there. Not there, but it's there in this spot here. So that's those little tweaks are making some difference. So this one's telling me it's a fraction up there. So that one's a tiny bit up. So if we were pressing this down with a 7.5 inch press, I think we'd be. Let me go and I'm going to go and give these a quick run through and just see if the press makes any difference. Bear with me, you can hear me, but you won't be able to see me very well. I shall come back and join you in a minute. 7.5 inch radius, pressing, no glue. No glue, no glue. So that's going to be pressing to the edges more firmly than anything else. So let's see if that does any different, or whether we. Now you see there's a bit of a. So that. Interesting. So there is a little discrepancy there. So the 7.25 press wasn't the best then for this, because I can tame this by tapping that down. Just about a little lift there. And why it's there, I'm not quite sure, but I mean, it's tiny actually, really. I'm struggling to make it click. The question then for me is that, do we want glue in there? Let's feel the way these are. I mean, there's a bit of room. Okay, so let's have a think. So I reckon we could go glue and tap with these. Let's see if these will come out easily. I wouldn't necessarily want to reuse these. I'm going to put them over there as backup. So it's nice. This is why it's nice to have a little bit of spare, because we can make decisions on what I think is going to be the most. I don't think the tangs are so tight that they're going to stop them moving at all. So that's my concern. So a bit of extra gluing in here would, without a doubt, help. Now from gluing, it tends to be that holding them down under the press tends to be good, because if you're using super glue, because that can hold them while you're doing the kind of pressing and the glue sets. But we've still got that slight mismatch in the things. I think tapping, if we can tap with glue, tap with super glue, a little bit of super glue, that would be the best way. It'll never, as I've said before, it's never going to be rocker free right from the off, because you just never do. It never, no fretting, no refretting is ever microscopically level from the outset. So there's always need to level it. The only issue for me is how close to being right from the outset it is. That's what I'm aiming for. The less levelling we have to do, the better. So I'm going to find me a little glue thing. Oh dear, I've got such a sniffing, sneezy feeling. Huh? That feels like it's been used already. Oh, maybe it has. Maybe I have to cut that off. So, the idea is we get some very thin glue. I will snip this off with this. Like so. Which always chucks it out all over the place. Thanks a whole bunch. Could do without that. Oh dear. Right. So, how do we want to do this? Let's try, well, first of all, that doesn't work. So that nozzle is no good. This one is too big. Let's try it. There's my fret. So the thing about a what's it board, a rosewood board, of course, is that it can easily be scraped, or much more easily scraped than can a maple board. So I can put the thing there like so, and then I can tap it home like so. And as far as the little bit of glue spill goes, I can easily scrape it later should I need to. But trying to keep it as little as possible on each fret. What I did for the other guitar, the Larry's guitar, is I put on I made some extra tangs in there to grip, which I could have done here, but partly did there because there was no chance to use any super glue, as it was a maple board, so I didn't have the luxury of doing that. Look. I think it's as good as it will be. The remainder will be taken care of with the levelling. Not thrilled by these little glue containers, but they were cheap and there were a lot of them in a pack, so I went for them. Also, tapping onto this coil is kind of useless really, because it spins around when you tap it. So it's probably better just on the deck like so. Some people press the frets in and then wick in, oh come on, wick in some glue afterwards. This is now it's become impossible to use. Get out there. Yeah, they sometimes put the fret in and then squeeze in the glue. The downside about that is what I'm hoping to get is the glue sticking to the underside. Yeah, I need the underside of the tang with some glue on it, and if I just wick it in the bottom, it will just stick to the sides of the tang, which isn't so much what I'm hoping for. So trying to get this out requires a massive finger pressure. Alternatively, get me a new thingy, a new glue tube. Okay, there goes my mahogany tapper, not so clever. I probably ought to get a better material, which I will do. Bear with me. Mahogany no, mahogany no, mahogany no, ebony no. What have I got? Come on. What's this? Mahogany again. What's this? A bit of maple something? No, that's a sapele. That's ancient mahogany, but it's still going to fall apart that way. What's this? Walnut? No. Alright, I'm going to use a bit of ecce. It's ancient and it's justified. It's justified and it's ancient. I don't know how long this will last, but it's ancient. Ecce is really hard. What they call it? Ironwood, Bongosian. Has a whole number of exotic names, but it's from Africa, and it gets used as it's used for the kind of supports of decks and pontoons and things like that. It's amazingly hard material. I'm going to have to gently scrape these because they're spitting out a little bit. It's very difficult to restrict the amount of glue that goes on here. Try my best. So that one there appears to be standing tall at the edge. Don't know why. Give it a clout. But no. Now, my concern about that then is it's in that horrible knotty area here, and I'm concerned straight away that this has not got enough depth in the fret slot. So, as a sort of emergency, I'm going to pay some attention to that, because if it doesn't go in, it's always going to stand up. And that is not an ideal situation. The others appear to be going in better than that, so I'm not so worried, but this one, not good. Come on. Thank you. It's a little bit out, but not the end of the world. Barely. Right, let's get this out of the way. That's a scrap one. So, the perils of fretting. Come on. Bloody superglue is a rogue material. It really doesn't do what you need it to do. Getting there. Sometimes you can put a radius on the block you're using. It can be fun, but it doesn't really make too much difference if you're tapping all over. If you're tapping all over the fret itself, it only has to be a perfect radius if you're pressing it, where you've got to get all points of contact the same at the beginning. I mean, in one go, I should say, not in the beginning, in one go. But when you're tapping it in several different places, it's not a problem. Oh, come on. God. I don't know why it's like that. Sometimes it just withdraws all the way to the back and then you have to somehow squeeze it, force it down again. Right. Oh, what am I looking at? I'm staring at me. The worst view in the world. Right, look, I'm going to carry on and do this, clean it up, and then I'll come back to you. It's getting boring and loud. Oh, sorry, it's blowing an absolute gale out there. Right, I'm chucking these bits of stuff away. Hello, sorry, back again. I'm going to scrape a little bit of glue off this thing here, and I'm going to round off the fret edges before I worry about the levelness, which I no doubt is going to become apparent. Again, I'm sort of thinking at this point, because when you have an uneven fretboard, uneven fretboard? No, if you have a radius like this that is not dependable, in other words, it changes a bit from 9.5 to 7.25. That's a real storm out there. Then I don't really want to run a radius block over it now to level it out. Sometimes it's nice to do that straight after a fret pressing, because you can get close to where you're going to be, and then the precision leveling part during the setup only has to sort of finish that business off. However, with this variation between 7.25 and 9.5, I don't want to run a thingy down the thingy, a radius block down it, because it would be too crude. It would it would impose a 7.25 radius on top of what may need to be slightly organic anyway still. And the nice thing about the banana fret leveling process is that it permits, or it doesn't care about the radius so much, so I can get it all level, and then it's happy with that. Let's turn this off. Yeah, so and we take the least amount of material, fret metal, away as possible. So anyway, that's the idea. So you see it's caught up, and as we always do, caught the edge of the fingerboard with the fret end beveling file. So I will take this home and I'll do some poly on the edge. I did a test as well on the back of the heel to make sure this was poly finish, not a nitrocellulose finish, just to be sure. So I'll take it home, and should I do it tonight? Truth is, I want to do it after I've done the basic geometric setup. So actually I will hold off. What I'll do is I'll put the neck back on onto the body, minus the electrics for the time being. I will, probably not tonight now, but I will do the geometric fret leveling. I level the frets using the banana and doing it with the frets. Now that one looks, does that one look like it it appears like it's sitting up. That might be one that has to come out. Yeah, that, I have a feeling that one, I will, let's have a look. I think the slot may not be right for that one, so I've just chucked away my glue. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it in the press and see if I can just press that one down. If not, I shall put it back, I'll take it out and I'll clean the slot out again and see what we can do. But now I need to put it on the block. Where's it gone? Sorry about this, terrible video. So I can see the one that's standing up, it's there. There. Did I get a big yank? And if that don't sit down, then it'll be a problem with the slot depth. Yeah, it's a little high. I'll give it another tapping with the hammer and the block. A little bit, that's not so bad. Right, where was I? Did I go all the way up? I think I did, nearly got there. Yes, anyway, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to finish the edges after I've done the basic leveling, but not the polish out, because then I can put the finish on and include that in the sand out. Is that the way to do it? I'm just thinking. It's difficult to come to a conclusion. I'm noticing some old wear on the side of this fretboard here I didn't see before. All around it, it's all up in the area of this, or nearby this knotty bit, which I think is, I don't know if it's oilier than anything else. I think knots probably are, aren't they? No. So what do you think? Do I do a 7 1/4 inch radius block now to make it 7 1/4 inch? What that would do is it would probably cut more in the middle than the outsides then, because the outsides should be closer to the 7.25 to begin with. I mean, I can always do a light run and just see what it does. Give me an indicator. Right, down the sides for these. So I think that will be, I'll just run, what I'll do is I'll mark up the frets and I'll give them a very light run with the 7.25, because in a sense that's what we're really working to at the outer edges, and we'll see what the block does and see how it reads the frets. If it's obviously taking miles off one part, then I'll leave it for the banana fret leveling, which I can do sooner rather than later. Right. It's Sunday night, so I'm looking forward to going home and getting some 2-day stew. Right, let's do a little markup just for the sheer hell of it and see what the radius block tells us. And it will tell us very quickly which, if any, of the frets are miles high, and if they're so high that they need to be pulled and the slots recut. And that's probably something, if I were to say, what did I learn from this refretting? I think I would say that I've learned that when you have a mismatch between two radii, yeah, you've got to, and you've got a, oh, come on, man. You've got a mismatch between two radii, and you've got the kind of board. Why isn't this working? You've got one of those thin boards. Then you don't really have the option to re-radius the board, but we could essentially re-radius the frets now. So I'm going to look and see what it tells me. Oh, funny enough, it's coming up with something towards the opposite of what I kind of expected. So it's telling me 7.25. It's telling me it's behaving. All right, it's cutting the ends. Cutting the ends. Cutting the ends. It's going to cut the ends to make it a 725. Really? I suppose so. Let's see whether it really is a 725 or whether in fact it's more of a 9.5. It's coming out more as a 9.5 then. Interesting. So that's there's one or two high ones in that. So the ones or two that I thought were high are coming up as high, which is no surprise. Now what I'm interested in now is just checking the basic rocker level and see how far off we are. If they're almost there with no clicking, then we can take up the slack with the precision leveling. It's funny, it reminds me of using the old Crimson guitar leveling files, and I haven't used them for a hell of a long time, and they frightened the life out of me because they were so voracious. Okay, so that one seems high at that end. That's close, it's all there. That's taken the high one down there, which is good. Yep. So high one there. Very good. High, slightly high there. So doing a radius block leveling like this does the sort of main leveling work, and then the remainder is done when the neck is under load, and I do it with the banana. But this does the sort of hard work and gets that out of the way, which is not a bad way of doing it. So for me to assess, I think that's workable. There's one or two that have had a bit of a fair bit of level, but even then it's not that much. So it's kind of leveled it out to 9.25, which is fine with me. That the block has told us what the closest one is. That's probably the one with the most leveling done, but actually overall that ain't so bad. What I would do is better off replacing this, setting everything up and playing it, and then, radiusing it, not radiusing it, leveling it with the strings on. So that's probably another day right now. What time have we got? It's 8:30. Yeah. So that's all not bad. It's all not bad. So I think what I'm going to concentrate on is just getting rid of this glue here, get a fresh blade and just tidy that up. And I'll see you tomorrow when what I'll do is I'll have this on the neck and I'll do the precision leveling then as all one thing. So sorry, it's been a bit fragmented because I've been thinking on the fly, and I will take this home and finish off the edge tonight as well. So I will see you on the next one. Oh, hello, we're back. And we're straight back into, I can't even see what I'm looking at, yeah, straight back into wiring up the scratch plate, or rewiring with new pots. So we've got new CTS pots here. So it should be nice and straightforward. There's nothing complex about this old-fashioned style wiring setup. We've got earths, grounds, a bit, what's the word, flimsy, but we've got grounds and we've got a couple of extra wires to put in place, and we're going to put a bit in between these as well. So nothing hugely complicated. What we're looking for, where did they go? Where did I put, that's weird. So somewhere here I had, oh man, I had a capacitor, which is gone. Not in there, that's 0022s. Where's the capacitor gone? Oh, really? 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 Are you kidding me? I had one in here. I had a bag of bits and I put them all in here. And the capacitor would have gone in there as well, except it is now vanished. That's hard to understand because that was in there. So now I've got to try and figure out where it went. Always the way. It goes and it puts on the bleeding camera, and then you lost the thing you need. 223, 223, 223. Where's the 47 gone? I bought one. That ain't right. 223. That's like not fair. Like it really isn't. These are all genuinely 223s. Those are big oversized ones which I don't want to use. Those are 104s. I don't want to use those. And this one is a 473. I might end up having to use it. It's just a bit on the big side. Did I put all of these in here? Have I gone mad? Oh look, there's the thought so. It's in there. So how many of these are what? 473s. This is two 473s. This is a Firebird kit. That isn't a Firebird kit, so that's wrong. Sorry about this. No capacitors in there for the time being. That's fine. I've got more than enough 2.2s, so I can stay out of the way. Right. We'll use those. So I'm going to follow. I've got a diagram because it's just slightly different from the way I would wire these things. So I'm going to go, where are we going? Middle, middle, middle. We need a bit of tubing. See, I had one with a bit of tubing in it too. Seems so wrong. Oh, I'll use a bit of this. Where did the tubing go? It's funny, isn't it? You remember buying the thing, you remember putting it somewhere going, oh look, it's got some rubber tubing and that will do just fine for what I need it for. And then it vanishes. It really does vanish. It's not in here, it's not there. Well, not the end of the world. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Any bits of rubber in here? No. There was one with a little tied. How could I just? Have I used it already? Maybe I used it. That's always a possibility. Maybe I already used it. There's a couple of treble bleeds there, but that isn't it. Well, okay. I'll end up having to use one of these. So what am I doing here? I'm going to, the idea is we're just going to wire these up. Grounds here, which we'll tie together in a minute. But in the first instance, let's just figure out that the capacitor has to come back off. Actually, it's only off the top of that one onto the top of there. So that doesn't have to be too long. That's okay. So we've got one mark there. I've got my slightly bigger soldering iron tip. I want it to make with the heat to get the things to the top of pots, because actually it can be quite difficult. Yeah. So capacitor is going to go in that first one, but there's something else that's going to go in with it that's going to jumper across. So that could be there like so, but for which we will need a bit of tape. That one to go to there. I want this to sit there. Sort of like that. That'll do. So today, during the day, I've been finishing the refret and the bit of poly down the edge of the neck, which is a nice process of sitting at home doing it, nice and lazy. So if we can get this one stuck to here. Yeah, so that the neck is hanging up ready to go. So once we've got this wiring done up, we'll put it all back together again and we should be ready to go. I've done the fret polishing and sanding out just a bit earlier with the camera off because it's boring-ish. Okay, so there I've got so these are the ground wires. This one's very flimsy looking. None of these feel very easy to manage, so might end up having to do two bits of that stuff, 2 bits of this. I think the third one will have to go somewhere else, just because it's very difficult to manipulate. Now I've lost for a moment the things I need. Look at that, it just never works, does it? That one grounded, and then we'll just get this one on as well somewhere nearby. These pushback wires always get a bit shaggy over time. They're not my favourite, but they are sort of quite vintagey looking, I suppose. You can see that this one doesn't feel very, feels a bit on the loose side. There we go. What we mostly want is for this to sort of stay safely out the way, and perhaps a way to achieve that is to just get a little cable tie. A small one. And it's cleaning it down with rain again. Thought it had finished all of that yesterday, but no. Okay, well that should keep it safely out of the way. So on here we've just got 3 to hook up to these new pots, and a bit of connecting up on the new pots themselves. So we want to connect these together with a bit of ground wire, so let's use a bit of this pushback black stuff. 3 bits of this, 1, 2, 3. I was just watching a thing, one of the most infuriating things I think I've seen in a very long time, and you know, there are plenty of infuriating things on the internet, as you probably know well, but this one you'll no doubt have seen it by the time I describe it. This is there's a guy who sits in King's Cross and Pancras, I think it is, plays the piano. Yes, that one. Anyway, so he's there playing this, and he makes videos, and to be fair, on most of the time, if I'm thinking of the right guy, he's sort of, I don't know, he's just, you know, he plays cute tunes and he gets people to join in and whatever. I think that's him. Anyway, but anyway, so I think somebody Kavanagh, something like that. Anyway, so this time, today or a couple of days ago, he was just doing his video at the station playing piano, and in the background, out of the blue, a little party of Chinese people walks up in the background, and anyway, they seem to be with a Western person, but anyway, they're all carrying little booklets, so they seem to be at the same, probably at the same sort of event or something like that. But anyway, so they come up, and at the first instant, you just assume that they're going to say something complimentary about the music, because they have all these smiles on their faces, and so the woman starts talking to him, and he doesn't really quite understand what she's saying, and in broken English, not very good English, she says something about it, paraphrase, it's not acceptable that we have our faces on camera, because the someone they work for won't like it, or something very like that. And the pianist guy is at this point just looking really like, hey, well, what's that got to do with me? You just walked all the way over here, got in front of my camera, and now you're telling me your employer won't like it if you're on camera. So could I what? Not have you on? Could I delete this video? As you can imagine. So he's incredulous about this point, as I would be, and then suddenly this aggressive young Chinese man, who I guess is some honcho in the party, and it turns out, but you don't know this at the time really, that they are part of a Chinese state television, so I don't know whether in the Chinese system they have excessive power and can treat people like dirt, but it really looks like that. So they're demanding that he's deleting their images. They don't give him permission to their rights and so on and so forth. And he sort of trying to reasonably inform them that, look, this isn't how it works in this country. Being as polite as possible. He's saying, it's democratic. You're allowed to film in public. There's no law against it in this country, and they're being so rude to him and so demanding and so aggressive, actually, that, to be fair, he then says something like, "Look, this isn't communist China, or something to that effect," which is totally actually understandable when you see the video. He's amazingly restrained. He doesn't swear once, which I commend him for. Anyway, so he does this thing where he says, "This isn't communist China. You can't. We have right for free speech here, and you don't have a right to privacy in a public place. End of story. Doesn't matter how nicely you ask or how much you shout," kind of thing. So they refuse to accept it, and then he makes some comment about they're going. He says something about, he said, "You're being racist by calling them communist," and he said, "Well, you're carrying these little red flags with," and I don't know if he wasn't sure what the flag stood for, but I think he assumed it was a Communist Party flag, and it's not an unreasonable assumption, because it had some stars and a little, was it hammer, sickle, that kind of thing? Anyway, so not totally unreasonable, and so they accuse him of racism for daring to think that they're communist because they're carrying this little flag and coming to his country and demanding he stop filming them, telling him what to do, which is just amazing. Anyway, so the guy escalates, the Chinese guy escalates. Something happens, and one of the women, I don't know, puts a flag near him or something, and he just moves it out of the way, and the Chinese guy seizes on the chance to scream, "Get your hands off my colleague! Don't touch her! Don't touch her!" And importantly, really significantly, he screams. He does it like a sort of paedophile call, as in, "Alert, paedophile, paedophile!" He says, "You're not her age. Don't touch her. Don't touch her. You're not her age." It's like an alarm going off. It's the weirdest thing. Anyway, and the poor guy is just going, "What are you on about? She put her thing there, or I didn't go anywhere. I don't want to touch her. What are you on about?" Anyway, so, but it's already done. They've effectively screamed paedophile at him, which is just, I mean, I wouldn't have even, I honestly wouldn't have even thought the Chinese people would do that kind of thing. To me, that just seems like a sort of traditionally British thing that people do when they want to disable somebody or invalidate someone, and they scream pedo or fascist or Nazi or Islamophobe or whatever the current silencing terms are. Anyway, so this guy screams at him to let go, and he just keeps going, "Get your hands off, don't touch her, don't touch her, don't touch her, don't touch her." Absolutely for effect amongst these people in this shopping centre, train station. And so our guy sort of, keeps his cool amazingly, and the Chinese guy says, "Right, that's it. I'm not talking to you anymore. I'm going to call the police." So lo and behold, they call the police, and two police arrive. One of them, a male policeman, goes straight to the point, to his credit, and says to the Chinese party, "I'm allowed to say that, or is that racist?" Says to the Chinese party, "Oh yeah, no, I know, this will be fine. Demonetize this. I know YouTube hates people talking about that country. Anything anyone says about China is critical, and therefore the Chinese government gets it shut down." Amazing. I think it's like a sort of block ban that they have it's like a ban on account. Anyway, I don't care about it. So so he goes. The policeman comes around and he goes to the party, Chinese party. He goes, he's allowed to video in public. End of, you know. But despite him having said that, the policewoman insists on trying to take our pianist guy off to one side, and his cameraman sort of follows him because I guess he said, "Don't leave me, you know, come bring the camera." And the policewoman says, "No, I don't want you to bring that. I want to talk to you off camera." And he said, "No chance. You know, this is to make sure that nobody's lying." And she said, "Well, I've got my camera on." He said, "No, this is my insurance policy, effectively." So she really absolutely detests that. You can see how angry it makes her that he won't put his camera off. Anyway, so she does. You can absolutely imagine what she does. She deals with him like he's causing a breach of the peace, basically, and upsetting their feelings. He's hurting their feelings, so that he's at fault. And it is, you know, you couldn't. Well, you'd make, if you were cartooning it, you would make it up that way, and that's what he does. So it's absolutely terrible. It really is. Absolutely terrible. And I mean, you know, obviously nothing happens in the end. The policewoman ends her interaction with him by kind of snapping, "Well, you just play your piano," or something like that. You know, it's a really irritated. I can't win, so I'm going to treat you like a child and demand you play your piano. It's like, well, what's the difference between that and being told to shut up, to switch the camera off by these Chinese people? Anyway, but I have to say, I have never seen such an arrogant, aggressive, and actually, I mean, an entitled is probably another word that fits it. But if you actually stop and think about it for a minute, I think that behaviour reflects, I guess, what they're used to. And if that's the case, or if, you know, the way they behave, and the way the younger man spoke and bullied, he's clearly, first of all, he was clearly in charge of his female colleagues. He was the power broker, and he kind of gave himself away in the way that he was like a party. You can imagine in the film of the Communist Party where the party apparatchik gets to treat, you know, he's got power only because he's positioned in the party, and he's an inadequate weasel otherwise. And this guy behaved exactly like that, and absolutely demanding this guy shut his camera off or delete them from the thing. And you just knew, watching him, you just know that he gets away with this at home in his party structure or in his, whatever hierarchy he's working to. But the arrogance that you would come to Britain, and you could bring that expectation with you, that is a dangerous kind of arrogance and really remarkable. And if that's what party apparatchiks in that country have become used to, that they think they can go anywhere in the world and treat people that way, there's going to be some trouble somewhere at some point. And when we're thinking about how things are going to play out in certain colonies and islands that are claimed by certain places, if you know what I mean. Okay, so the red one is going to go to there, and the black one is going to come out to the jack. Jack, baby. So should we do brown? Because we never used enough brown. Let's do brown. Brown to the jack, baby. White to the jack. Brown and white for our pair. Anyway, it was just you'll no doubt have seen it. You won't see it on mainstream TV because it's too outrageous, but I'm sure you will have, if you don't watch just mainstream TV, I'm sure you'll have get to see it somewhere. Blimey, is it mental. And of course, the net result, I don't know if any of you remember a thing called the Streisand effect. Streisand effect? I think it comes from a story that's actually back in the sort of, probably even the early 90s could be, when the internet was very young and misunderstood perhaps. And I think it's a story that Barbara Streisand, the film star, was somebody had leaked some story about her that she was really angry about, and she didn't want people to leak or know. So I think the story is that she hired a whole load of people to squelch the story and prevent anyone knowing what she'd done. And something in my mind tells me it was something like 4chan that she annoyed, and the consequences, they just, it was the early days of the internet, but if I remember, they got so annoyed by her assumption that they could shut them up, that they broadcast it everywhere and gave her an absolute ton more publicity than she ever could have got any other way. And so ever after that, they became known as the Streisand effect. So that it's kind of like a warning, be wary of trying to control the internet, because it will bite you in the ass and you will get a ton more publicity than you ever wanted. And the same actually applied to those Chinese people, because by the time this video had finished, they'd been standing there for half an hour in full glare of the camera, and not only that, but live streamed at the same time to something like 1,000 people, if not more. And then now it's of course gone multi-platinum viral. So they got the exact opposite effect of what they demanded they should have. So there you go. Now I'm doing this. This extra ground wire across the top here isn't strictly necessary when the pots stand on a foil sheet, but the actual state of the foil sheet here may be so dirty. It may be one of the reasons. It's not the greatest of solder joints. Maybe one of the reasons why this something here wasn't working properly, because if it's covered in grease and not making a good electrical contact, then you ain't going to get the grounding you need. So rather than try and clean it up some degree, what I'm just doing is I'm just adding a sort of manual ground wire just to be sure, like so. And then we've got a ground for the jack, we've got a ground for the bridge, we need the positive out to the jack, and then we need this red one here out to the volume pot. So we'll just see if we can get this one off without the whole thing falling apart. Anyway, yeah, look forward to if you get to see it. I'm sure you'll enjoy it, because it was bloody funny. So I just thought, next thing you know, you ought to get posters made up and project the faces on the side of the Chinese embassy in London or somewhere. Mind you, as we've seen, I think it was it in Manchester? I think it was. The Chinese embassy staff came outside and had a go at some reporters or something. Do you remember? Not long back. Maybe it was, again, one of these things that was possibly never put on mainline telly, but over-enthusiastic guy, same sort of thing really, came out and jostled, manhandled a reporter on the streets of Britain because he didn't like the tone of his inquiry or his question. I mean, come on, what's going on? And there is definitely, you know, some crazy entitlement going on there. Anyway, so yeah, if you did, oh, I don't like that. Oh, brittle. Just moving that, it's broke. Oh, piddle. You know what I'm going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I'm going to reinforce it with a little strip of brass. Maybe brass. I don't know really. Am I? Could I? Should I? Would it? Could it? Has it? It's very... Damn. This is very brittle. Well, there you go. That's what I didn't expect. So, what I'm going to do, I think, I'm going to draw a little curve here. First of all, that's not the right pen either. Does it work? No, of course it doesn't work on there. Alright. So that's the front bit. And the back bit could go like this. That's my little theory. Yeah, well, anyway, so that was my little... Did you see that? And of course, this will now be the proof of the pudding, because if YouTube don't like it, or sorry, no, the aforementioned authoritarian country don't like it, then there's every chance that it will be closed down for being critical of certain aforementioned country, which, as I say, I've seen in previous incidents, it doesn't appreciate being criticised, and actually, a bit like the people, in fact, exactly like the people in that station, immediately screams to the authorities to shut down what was going on. So what I'm thinking about is this little butterfly here, like so, with a little bit of sticky tape. Now the truth is, sticky tape is not very strong, and it also adds thickness, but the only alternative is going to be adding some resin, which sometimes sticks and sometimes doesn't, in my experience. So at least this bit here, at least this sticks. So the bit that needs to join is across the middle here, and it's actually a bit sticky uppy. So let's see if I can just tame it a minute. Where is the sanding block? Where is the sanding block? There's one, not a very good one. I don't really have a means to hold this down very well. Yes, so we shall see. If this video vanishes, then it's because I have criticised or laughed, yea, even laughed at a particularly intolerant and authoritarian and breathtakingly arrogant and entitled nation. Not all of it, but just in that example, that unfortunately very public example. Go on there. be honest, when a bit of a scratch plate breaks, there really isn't anything in the world strong enough to bond it together. The only time I've fixed them at all is with resin and a little bit of brass or something like this here. It's just holds it together a bit. Having said that, it will also lift it up, which may be what we don't want really. So what we could do is, while I'm at it, let's put another bit on top, although the only downside about that is that it's thickening it again still, but at least it will prevent it from scratching. I've been reading a book this last while about Goldman Sachs, the bank trading brokerage people, which is funny because I couldn't imagine that I'd ever read a book on them, but I sort of pushed myself to read it, so I put it in the downstairs loo. I was guaranteed to read a page a day or something like that, or 10. And lo and behold, I'm working my way through it. So here we go. And this is my little attempt. I have no idea how well that's going to hold it or not, but I've done my very best. That's just broke under its own weight. In fact, it broke under the weight of the pickup, or weight of these actually. So that's not so good. Now where am I going with this one? I'm going to the in lug. Well, another detour on the road. Now tomorrow I've got a left-handed Firebird going out to Andrew in Scotland. I've got a Taylor 324 coming in for another one of Rohit's guitars, and here's my white wire. Yeah, and I've got a few of an unnamed guitarist. No, nothing special, just somebody who says, don't let my wife know. Don't tag me in any way, so I'm not even going to tag him verbally. As he cheekily keeps it hidden from the misses. So I've got one full setup and a couple of new nuts on 3 of his guitars. 3? You told me you'd stop buying them. So I'm busy all the way into next week, at least. And that's, doing something every day. So no hanging around, no taking any time off. Okay, let's push this one out of the way. So after this, I'm going to just sense check what I've done here. Empty, empty, yes, yes, full, full, yes. This one through there, it's going to come out, that's to the jack. And I'm replacing the jack as well because it was a bit dodgy. And I think after 40 odd years it's probably as good a time as any to do it. So there's the output to the jack. So we've got plus and minus to the jack, we've got ground to the minus to the thingy, bridge, everything else connected up, these three grounded, that grounds all three, yep. That's the two out, one in, out, across to there, out, that hangs that off there, right. Okay, so obviously the original stuff is good old-fashioned original stuff, so I'm going to put that in a bag with the original jack, and we'll keep, oh, and we'll have these screws, nuts and washers to go in with it. Now, one of the things I noticed the other day was when the neck went back on, the alignment of the strings down the neck wasn't fantastic, so I'm going to make sure when we put it back on just to double check the positioning so that we've got equal spread. Now the nut I've currently got for it that I worked on yesterday is a very odd thing because it's extremely, the nut slot on this guitar is extremely shallow. So first of all you have to kind of modify the nut quite substantially because it has to be, to have a low action, and if it's shallow you end up with almost nothing in the nothing in the slot itself. So it's incredibly, I don't know what the word is, it's incredibly thin little piece of material. Of course you saw the other one originally was a great big chunk of material, but the slots cut it right down to nothing because it still needed, that's what it needed to be to play properly. So it was like that before, only just they left a load of the original material there. So it looked more substantial than it was, but if you looked at how far it was cut through, then there wasn't really anything. Oh bugger, I've just done a thing I didn't need to do. All right, we're still going to need to solder, so let me just bring this bag. What do I need? I need the solder and I need those, probably. Let's bring those back. So I'm going to just do up this new jack, but I'm going to put a little bit of thread lock on it, light gauge thread lock, which will really help it stay in place and stop it coming out should it wish to. I'm just going to sort of splash it all over. Pour it through. I'm not even going to clean these up because they're nice and mucky like the original. I'm going to drop that on there, put that in there, and then try and get a little bite by turning it around first, like so. And then hold it in place and tighten it up. Yes, so tomorrow I had a kind of crossover with this. If this guitar needs any more work, then I've got tomorrow, a bit of time tomorrow. But it'd be nice if I could complete it this evening, but we shall see. Nice and tight. Squeeze those in a bit. There you go. I don't really, do I need? Yes, I might need that. So let's move things out of the way. Yeah, so tomorrow's work will probably be either finishing this off and or starting the next Strat refret, which is Justin's Olympic White, made in America. So here is our guitar. It's kind of, grubby isn't the word, it's got a certain amount of grime to it which isn't going to polish out either any which way. Did find out, thanks to helpful people, that these saddles appear to be from, in fact I'm not even going to take them apart and clean them because it just doesn't make sense with the overall finish of this guitar. But yes, the writing on those things apparently it comes from some Tokai thingies, Tokai from a Tokai Strat, so that's interesting. That would be very early 80s too. 82? So where does this go through? All right, through here. So we're going brown and white through here. Well, first of all, we're going black through here. Please go black through here. And then we're going to go brown and white through here. Sorry about the view, I just better check it in a minute. It's actually quite amazingly difficult when you're trying to push siliconized wires up through a tunnel and they don't wish to go. So there are those two. And then there's a bit of this, pulling that tight, and then there's that, pulling that tight. If we've got way too much here, we can always cut these back, because we don't need all of this. Okay, that fits there, and that will now sits up a little bit. Chances are it'll. No, I don't think it just looks wrong. I think I'm just going to have to do without it, I'm afraid. Too tall, too much in the way. It's not going to do any harm, it's just going to, we know it's split, and so it's potentially, I think, yeah, we'll just sit there. I don't think any issue. Right, we had a couple of crappy screws here, so I think we need to tip out a whole load and find some pre-loved ones. So what I'm looking for here is ones that have got some the shine taken off the top of them, but they're still good old-fashioned pickguard screws, but unshiny ones. We'll do that one. Not so easy to find, but we'll get there. That one. That one. And that one. Too shiny, reject. Too perfect, reject. That's got a little bit of corrosion on it. That will do for now. Right, let's attach those. And then we'll sort out the jack socket. That's interesting. Okay. dirty looking ones, please. They're all too clean, these. Too clean by half. That's a bit rusty, that one. Perfectly good though. There's a grey looking one. Two of them. There we go. Not so good. That's better. Okay, I probably could do with a bit less wire. Now, what I was going to do is possibly, shall we put on a little shrink tube on each one of these, just to keep the bits away from each other, insulated. Thank you. I probably will cut it back just a little bit. There's no need for it to be too long. So white being the hot and brown being the ground. And then that should all be good. It's very simple circuitry, so unless I've done something completely stupid, nothing likely to go wrong. Come along. Okay. Then we get the first of our little red bits. Stick it on there. Alright, are you seeing what I'm doing? Now you are. My apologies. So what did we say? White was hot. Now we can either go and retrieve this and use this. It's never massively successful. Come on. Funny thing about these helping hand things is that they just do not like to hold on to wires in this way. Oh, they don't like holding on to jacks for a start. These boat things, whatever they call them, cups, Strat things, and then it's just rattly. There's nothing about it that's secure. See what I mean? Just garbage. And that's the nearest bit you're going to hang on to. Oh, not even that is evens. Will that stay there a bit like that? Just keep in line. Would you? Would you, Jace? Possibly. Maybe. That is the hot bit, and this will be the ground bit. Done in a second. Funnily enough, getting this wrong is one of the easiest things you can do. If you're like me, a number of times I have mixed them up, basically. Put the hot one on the earth's ground side and vice versa. Obviously vice versa, but amazing. You just wouldn't think it possible, but I have done it. And because it goes into usually either into a tunnel in the wood of a, I don't know, let's call it a Les Paul style guitar or such, or into this hidden little cap in its own little hole, it's often too easy, all too easy, to forget about it. And then you sort of find that the thing doesn't work. You distrust everything else you did. You take everything else apart until finally, right at the end, you think, could I have got those wrong way round? And lo and behold, you go and check it, and you have absolutely rubbish. Stupid, but it's very easy to do. Come on, come on. Right. Do we have, I think these have got maybe long ones, and if I remember correctly, but I could be wrong. I just have two there, thank you. Okie dokie. Okay, here's our screws for putting the neck on. Let's do it. There they are. 1, 2, and 3. Where's our neck? Oh, here it is. So right now, I don't have. I don't know the positioning, so I'm just going to try and leave it relatively loose, or somewhat loose, so that we can make that alignment adjustment where necessary. Okay, so this is very lightly tacked up, but since we don't have no, what am I saying? It's lightly tacked up because I want to test the jack, then I want to string it up and make sure that we've got the alignment right, and at which point we'll move the neck if necessary. So I've got some tusk bits and bobs here. So sometimes when I get the chance, I'll buy the string trees at the same time as, or buy them alongside a nut, which isn't any good in this case, but I'm just going to very slightly widen the hole here. Because these screws are a little bit bigger and I don't want it to do any splitting of the wood. I'm sorry, I've got you looking in the wrong place. So just down here at the moment, putting on these string trees, but then I'll test the pickups. So what I've done is I've bought another nut, even though this one kind of fits or does the job wherever it's gone now. But as you can see, it's incredibly thin by the time it's doing the job. Well, the other one will be too, but the reason I'm redoing this is because for one reason only, and that's the string spacing. The replacement Fender style nut from Tusk, or Graphtec, or if you call it, this the spacing is fractionally different. So I'm sort of tempted to just modify it or change it by I guess the only way to do it is custom making another one. So I'm waiting on a blank piece to come. Meantime, I'll see how this performs. If it feels good and right, then I'm not going to worry too much. We'll see. Might just work. Okay, so next thing, just a quick check of the. Make sure the jack works and the pickups work. Stay on there. Okay, that's interesting. So this originally wired up to have no tone on the neck and tone on the middle and the bridge only. That's how it is wired up in here. So we'll go with that for now, but I will check. You know, I'm kind of going to have to assume that that's how Nick wanted it, because that's how it was. It's definitely working in that configuration, although it's a little different from what I'd expect, because I'd expect, well, the conventional way is, as you know, no tone on the bridge is the conventional way. So that's something I can take care of very quickly. So these are still the old strings, which is fine, so I can put these on, do these up for now, and just test things out. Okay, I'm going to put the outer ones on, and then what I can do is pretty quickly allow me to check the. I think these are. Yeah. Now, if I remember it now, these are. I'm duplicating a string here, so I've got two E strings, one pretending to be a B, so it's only really just for alignment at the moment, I think, and check that everything's working. Okay, so you can see, oh, that doesn't help. Once we get this on the right part of the saddle, you can see that the way that you may be able to see that the way that the everything's sitting is that the neck is biasing the bass side. So we have to basically undo this a little bit and manually move it to where we want it. So it was very lightly done up before, so it should be, everything should be quite movable. So I'm going to do it where I can see it. So we're kicking it out a little bit here, which suggests a tiny bit. I mean, it could use a tiny bit of like a paper shim. Let's see what we can do here. Let's make a little cut. Very often people use a little bit of sandpaper like this to make a shim. Where do we want it to go? We want it to push out that way a little bit. So it's not going to be needing much. So sometimes I make it sort of follow the shape of the thing, which is probably a bit too deep, and then cut it back a bit. Let's see if we can just drop that in there. Well, it's dropped in there quite nicely. Probably could do, looking at this, it could do a tiny bit more. That's that grade of paper. I wonder if we got a bit of thicker one here. How deep does that go in? That's sticking up a bit too close to the top, so I'll just snip it back a tiny bit. I mean, this sometimes doesn't really help much. Sometimes it just adds that little bit. Probably what I need in there is probably a tiny bit more than that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick a bit of this on, so we've got this and that together, and we'll take it from there. So we've got a bit of grip on both sides too, a double-sided shim. Look at that. Technology in the making. Let's just check this for height. That is actually nearly the right thickness. But it may be fractionally too much, I don't know. Let's try and just get it to sit a bit lower in there. That's not too bad, actually. So that's put it in just about the right place. If I'm just going to do a little bit of a push there. Creak. Let's just have a look. Yeah, that's pretty good. It's just creaking because of the shim in there. So it's a little tiny shim pushing it out, but it's pushed it out to where it should be. Before, it was not in the right place. So having done the main bits, I think what I might do now, while in lieu of figuring out something about this, let's just put this in place here. in lieu of working out the business about the which of the pots the Nick wants to be linked to the tone, or which of the pickups Nick wants on the tone, I think we probably, or I could do worse than putting some strings on this set of tens and play it for a bit at home. Just get some miles on it and see what it feels like. It's probably a good thing to do. I mean, it's nice to finish, but it's nicer to get it right as well. So that's that. Get out of the way. That's this. This is doesn't have the normal little tab that these have, so it's going to just try and go splat onto this big lump of solder here, which is, to be honest, is soaking up heat like crazy. It's actually very difficult to get this to stick because there's so much heat shedding. That's why it normally has a little tab, so that you can get enough heat into it to actually do something. This is going to have to really heat up the whole plate to get this to stick. God, there's some sort of strange mess on there. So, tuck that in there. Yeah. Okay, so I think I would be probably wise to get this. Now these are probably going to turn out, what have they got in here? Glue, some weird stuff. I've got CTS pots, and these are probably some sort of, yeah, they're some old pots, but they've got blue tack in them. So there's going to be a mismatch of these fittings. So I really need imperial pots. I would have thought these would have been imperial, but again, maybe that's maybe it tells us that it's been changed before. I don't really know. I probably have a fitting set of pots in here somewhere, and I've got absolute a ton of parts, but they may all be a little bit bright. Whether you can tell, I mean, literally millions of these things. They're quite nice, but they're different in size. Let me just check for an example. No, even there. Well, I guess that's what I'm going to need to do, is find the imperial ones. I mean, you can squeeze the what's-its. So now I've gone on tone, volume, tone. Where have you gone? Easy to find it. It's that one. Yeah, I'm going to have to get the imperial one. Simply because we could spend forever looking for ones in here. I've got loads of these witch's hat ones, which is screw on, they would do. Ha ha ha. Tons of old ones in here. Wow. That's a funny thing, I've literally got so many of these old pots. But, and pick up, I think I should throw a load of this away. I never go in here. I never get things out of here. I mean, some nice old vintage ones here, but again, they're all metric, or the rare occasion that they aren't. If I see, these would go on nice with the screw insides, but they're not. They're push on as well. Right, I will go and find some metric ones. It's not critical right now. So to test out and play this, I think I need to put some new strings on, take it home, figure out the business about the tone, and then we will go from there. Round it off, please. Okay, so that will be what I do. So let's get rid of these. Get some fresh ones on. So these will be a fresh set of 10s. Cut all of this off. Yeah, you can, in the past, when I've had these imperial pots, CTS pots, you can squeeze in the tops of their tops a bit to make them fit, but I don't like the thought of doing that, unless, of course, I can't actually find imperial fitting ones, in which case I'll have to do that. But I think the squeeze-on pot, Strat pot, is one of the worst design things. I can sort of understand why Fender would have done it long ago, but I really don't like something that has to squeeze or press down so hard. Actually, it's not the squeezing bit, it's the pressing down so hard on the pot itself. Sometimes to get them on you have to press so hard that they almost break the pots, which is no good. Okay. I'm sure somewhere in my collection I will have a set of imperial pots, but finding them is well, I'll have a look off camera. In fact, I should do that, because I really ought to throw most of these plastics away, because they aren't doing me any good sitting there. So when it comes to loading up strings on a neck headstock with split posts, the way I do it is I pull up the string, hold it at its correct, what do you want to call it, tuner, measure 2 tuner posts past that spot, and then cut it there, bend it in, hold it down and put in the nut. So this is just going to be put in there physically for the moment. There we are. Yep. Okay, so we come to this one, hold it there, forward 2, cut it there. Never less than that much. You can, on the thick strings, you can just about get away with it, but on the thinner strings there's a risk of it slipping, so you don't want that. This one there, pull forward 2, and then you just have to guess at the end. You sort of estimate 2, because you haven't got an infinite supply of tuners to line it up against, obviously. So obviously I'm going to keep the original nut, because I'm going to take the measurement from that, the E to E measurement. Like I say, it's a tiny bit less than this replacement one, and I don't want it to feel different. It's going to feel different because of the refret, that's for starters, but I don't want it to be as a smaller difference as possible. Okay. Something like that. So only ball strings are in paper and they don't have any silica gel, but at least they're in a sealed plastic bag overall, and they probably have some modified atmosphere in inverted commas. Let's have a look. Yeah. I'm going to give these a sort of a seating pull. Get them bedded in a bit before tuning. So for that we need the tuner. Now I think I've cleared out the slots a bit here, so this is now fractionally lower than it was. So since I'm going to redo this, I'm going to actually shim this temporarily, just so I can take it home and play it. Yeah, that serves me right for doing some clearing out of the slots earlier on while it was at home. That's okay. Now, I think I threw that bit away, didn't I? Yes, I did. Where did it go? I threw it all away? Throwing it all away. I think I did. Come back. Let's have this bit here. Throwing it all away. Need a bit of wood. Can I have a bit of wood to cut on, please? Thank you. Can I have a knife? Thank you. So I'm just using a bit of the sandpaper which will stick neatly to the underside of this nut and should make it easy enough to trim it back. No, that's a mess. Difficult if you haven't got a curved surface, which I have, but it's under there and it's difficult to get out. Come on, go away. Fiddle, fiddle, fiddle. Pain in the middle. Something like this, this will do. I'm looking at this now, and actually somebody's done something to this nut as well in the past, in the olden days. It's weird. It's like a step down. It's all history now, but in this light, can you see that step at the back? Isn't that weird? There's like a line in front, like maybe a roller just maybe there's a Roland nut of some kind on there. Well, whatever it was, it's odd. Like a couple of things about this, but hey, we're just treating it as a normal slot at the moment, like so. Of course now it's got to be absolutely trimmed perfectly flush or else it won't fit in. Come on, you can do it. Right, come on, just so I can take it home and play it. Would you, please? Thank you. Right, let's just get it done up. Okay, that's give me a bit more height. That's fine for now. How close I got? Just accidentally. Actually, that fits quite well. That's actually quite bleeding nice. Don't know why I'm surprised. Right, well look, I'm gonna take this home as is, play it, check out the tweaks to the action and so on and so forth, find out about the tone circuit, where it should and shouldn't go, and then we'll finalize it from there. And it may take a couple of days if I've got to order in some, or a few days if I've got to order in some imperial knobs, and also hand make another nut probably. See how this one, how I get on with this one. Rubbish. Okay, well listen, sorry it's been a bit disjointed, this one. I think with a lot of unusual guitars there always tends to be a lot of thinking process along the way. It's never straightforward. That's actually quite a low action for this, so I'm pleased with that. Yes, quite a bit of thinking and processing along the way because it's never straightforward. So this one certainly involved a bit of that, with deciding whether it was possible or not to re-radius it to accommodate the slightly weird goings on with the shape of the radius, the dual radius of the fingerboard. That was a fairly unusual state of affairs. And then things like not a lot of room to realign down here, and the nut being fractionally wide at the moment, but actually it fits and plays all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these knobs in there, and I'm going to see if I find me some nice, I'll keep that for the measurements, although it's pretty hard to measure when you think about how far down those slots are. There's not a really good indicator, so I'm just going to use the E to E measurement here, which I can probably take now and write down. In fact, I'll do that while we're at it. I'm getting it as accurately as I can. Start with 0 would be good. So we're going from center of the slot to center of the slot. Wow, that's narrow gauge. I would say that's 33 millimeters. And this one is, and I look at it here, that's showing up as 35. But it's hard to judge it from here. Yeah, that's a different beat. That's a really narrow gauge little thing. There's no tusk replacement for that. But I'm going to pin it up here with the words 33 millimeters E to E written next to it, and then we'll know what we're doing. So this is the made in America, first of two, 33 millimeters E to E. Like I say, no replacements available. Nobody makes a nut like that, but we will we'll have to custom make one, because that will be quite a difference. I might enjoy playing this, but it may feel a bit too different for Nick anyway. I wouldn't be surprised. Okay, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. It'll be the end of this one. I'm not going to do the changing around of any tone circuit wiring if that has to happen. Also, with the tremolo on this, it's actually currently sitting up a little bit. So I'm going to set it down on the ground and then check my notes, and what I might do is it may end up getting set down only or floating. I can't remember what the request was. But the reason it's kicking up at the moment is because it's only got 3 of the original 5 springs in, mainly because it doesn't require all 5 to do what it needs to do. So it can do it perfectly well with 3, which is now pretty much what it's doing. No. Make sure these are all just off the deck, or just off the top of the plate, and not pressing it down, and then we can be fairly confident it's pretty much as far back as it will go. So that's decked, if you like, waiting to be used in the down only mode, which would look something like, where did I put it? Is it here? There's one, yeah, that's it. Is this the one that came with it? It must be. No, there's 2. It's got 2. This is the black one that was in it. Obviously it's moved a little bit because I've tightened the screws. So let's see how light I can make it without it tilting up. the idea will be to just get it so it's as light as it can be. See what's happening there. We are one height, string height. We want 1.5 there. Oh, it's a fraction on the low side. 1.5. So it's a 7.25 inch radius, effectively. So that's 1.2. That's the normal ultra low action that I would set on a 9.5 inch radius, so that's a little bit high. Tiny bit down again. That's one. Let's do it all. Okay, got a tiny bit of work on that one. That's fine. Okay, right, but a little couple of tweaks to do. That one is that sitting too high? It's hard to tell, but it's the last one. Yes, the last fret. Sitting up fractionally too tall. All right, I shall get on and take care of that, and we will see you in the next one.